Saint-Étienne was a chance for us to show the world that to make real cultural change takes diverse experience outside of design and architecture, and about everyone working together to bring what their life experiences are to the table for the benefit of community growth.
We came to represent Detroit, show them how we really do, and just become that representation that everybody needs, because everybody's so curious about what's going on in Detroit, and what better way to bring it to Saint-Etienne and to show everybody what we do here.
Any city youth can contribute to international and global things, and that was a great feeling for me. A young man from Detroit who doesn't necessarily have an architectural or a design degree was able to be in a foreign country working with architects and design teams and bringing all the loose ends together.
So part of the project was to bring as many Detroiters to Saint-Etienne as possible. And we've been incredibly struck by the similarities between Saint-Etienne and Detroit. They're both struggling with a kind of post-industrial heritage, and they're both cities that have a population that's incredibly proud of where they live and of the history of their place.
Design is important to Detroit because it sets the stage for how we work in that space, live in that space, play in that space, interact in that space. And you cannot do that if you haven't given it any thought as to what the space is.
Well, what I think is important about design in Detroit, and my part of design in Detroit, is that I think it's really important that that movement is led by the people that live in the city, because you can have design for a city come from the top down, but if people don't have a buy-in, a sense of involvement and responsibility, I don't think that it'll be sustainable.
You know, relationship building takes time and people, and you can have an exhibit and you can have the objects and you can even have like the publications, but if the people aren't learning from one another or going to these places and sort of keeping things evolving, then it really does fall flat. You know, here I think in Detroit we get isolated a lot. The arts and culture and design communities get stuck if we don't circulate more nationally and globally.
I had lunch with the mayor of Saint-Étienne, and I had the pleasure of asking him about the biennial and what he thought about it. And we immediately agreed that in order to raise the quality of life in a city, you have to invest in arts and culture, and he understands that thoroughly.
So we're in the out-of-sight exhibit that was designed by a co-aki, and we're right in the middle of the Funkestra stage. It was designed in the North End for the Detroit African Music Institution to host a large-scale opera about the history of music and funk in Detroit.
So the Detroit African Funk Orchestra is a collaboration of musicians here in Detroit from varying backgrounds that represent Detroit's legacy as well as where Detroit sees itself going.
Bryce, the band leader of the Detroit African Funk Orchestra, allowed each one of the musicians, all 10 of us, to tell our own individual story through music. So each one of the members came with a song idea or a rough sketch and was able to direct, if you will, the rest of us and how we fit in. And so we became our own storyteller. And each time we played it, all 18 shows were a little bit different, a little bit more experimental.
The collective is what people refer to as improv. I would like to say it's more a matter of reflex.
We were learning each other at the same time as experiencing a new culture that a lot of us had never experienced before.
It got better as time went on. You know, we got to some places musically by week 3 that we didn't imagine at the very beginning of the process.
We were the musical group, the first musical group to play the Biennale Festival ever. It's a 20-year festival, and we were the first musicians to play there. It was a real honor.
There was no designing without the music. The music is what actually inspire or the impetus for the design or the creation, if you will. Even though it's been remiss from the Saint-Étienne prior to us coming there, it's always been a part of creation or design in the African concept.
I forget whose song that we were on, and Bryce would feel the energy of the room and the energy of the conversations that he would have with the people beforehand, and that's how he would direct his storytelling and his narrative, if you will. There was one show where Bryce started saying us, 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 and now the whole crowd of people is chanting us, 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 and at that moment I knew this was so much bigger than me. So much bigger than me. This is a cultural exchange, and this is the way we as people make the world not so separate.
Emotionally, it was a very powerful experience. I think I cried about 3 times just in my hostel, like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I'm all the way in France. I mean, this was my first time personally going out of the country, and to go with a purpose was the greatest feeling ever. I was so proud. Everyone around me was so proud to be there.
Detroit deserves to be in the spotlight. I've lived here all of my life. I've seen the high times, the low times, many times over. And I can say, as low as we get, we always find a way to come back and reinvent ourselves in a way that is remarkable from the ground up. So for people to be interested in that and want to know more about that and figure out why the people are so resilient, it's just fitting for us to be in the spotlight. We have something to be proud of.